So today's guest is Ryan Holmes. He's the founder and CEO, or previous CEO of social media management platform Hootsuite. Love to talk to you about the transition there. Ryan's grown Hootsuite from a lean startup to a global leader in social media with over 5 million users, including 79 of the Fortune 100 companies. Ryan, like myself, is a college dropout. He started a paintball business and a pizza restaurant before building Invoke Media, the company that developed Hootsuite in 2009. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks, Gabe. Good to be here.
Great to have you. You're down south of the border right now, right?
I am. Yeah, we got a place in Mexico in the Baja, and we came down right as all of this world of COVID kind of started happening. Just for it was going to be a month of work remote, and then it's ended up being about 4 months so far. And so it's been a really interesting one to kind of test the waters of remote working.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies are experiencing this, like I call it like a global forcing function to adapt distributed teams and distributed work. What's that been like for you?
Yeah, well, I talk about the same thing. It's accelerated digital transformation. We've been hearing about digital transformation for a long time, but this has really been a forcing function for it. For myself and our team, we did not have a particularly strong culture of distributed remote work. But we had a lot of the tools in place, luckily, and the team, from an IT perspective and all the kind of underpinnings that were needed really stepped up and helped roll that out really quickly. So we luckily haven't really skipped a beat on the change up to distributed. For me personally, I have absolutely loved working remotely. I'm very grateful to be in a beautiful place, but I feel like the interesting piece with it has been that because everybody is distributed, there isn't that feeling of you being the only remote person where everybody else on the meeting is in the same room. And so it kind of equalizes the experience for all people by somewhat lowering the bar. And I think that ultimately, I feel like I've been really effective, and as well, it's kind of like added some joy to my life. Just being able to play with my family and go have a quick walk and come back and then just hit stuff hard. So I'm curious on through the long term if this becomes, we can benchmark it and prove out that people actually are more effective in a distributed environment.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day. I was saying, like, everyone kind of knew that everyone wanted to work from home for a long time, but it was like vitamins. Like companies kind of knew that, hey, like if I expanded my talent pool outside of the 20 miles around my office, like I might be able to access different kind of people, right? So it opens up the talent pool. And immediately it became, it immediately moved from like vitamins to medicine, right? Where it's like, oh my God, I have to make distributed work happen. So I'm curious to get your take on, like, okay, now that it's medicine, you've had to do it. What kind of like unlocks have there been as maybe as a company that you guys have discovered?
Yeah, well, I think that there is some vestigial kind of psychology from the first industrial revolution that has continued through to the day that we're in. And back in the industrial era, people working in factories, you got your shift boss looking over your shoulder to see you're producing the right number of widgets in an hour, and having people all in the same place for the purposes of manufacturing is important. And that, I think, carried through to the world of office environment. How many emails how many pages can you type out in a day? I think we're moving from measurements around quantity to measurements around quality, and what is the impact, and also can you produce quality or as much product and help the company in as big of a way, perhaps in even less time.
Yep.
through better focus and perhaps environment. So I
Yeah.
think within our company, we're doing a lot of the things that everybody else out there is doing. We've for especially for information businesses, our remote work tools, video
Yeah.
conferencing, all of that has been critical. We use Google Hangouts. We are
Yep.
big user of all the Google products, and we also use Facebook Workplace as
Yep.
a social network. We're a social network company, but it's basically a social network for your business. And the usage of those has just gone, through the
Yeah.
roof, of course.
Yeah.
And then I think that the cadence of team meetings has
Yep.
maintained. One-on-ones has maintained. But we've also spent a lot of time just checking in on people's mental health,
Yep.
because it's a really challenging time for a lot of people. It's a transition for a lot of
Yeah.
people. There are, it's obviously a very concerning thing that's happening. Some people, it's water off a duck's back and they don't even
Yeah.
pause on it. But other people, it has impacted them well.
Yep.
Extroverts, I think, this is a challenging time for them, right?
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
funny. It's like the introverts of the world are all like cheering because finally
Yay.
they get to have some quiet and work. But extroverts, yeah, I think this is like a challenging time. They're kind of climbing up the walls and doing Zooms and like whatever they
Yeah.
can to have that interaction with humans. So I think that there's no single silver bullet for this. I think it's a
Yeah.
multi-tiered approach to how businesses are going to be more effective.
So you're seeing maybe like classically like engineers are stoked to be working from home and working on their own hours, and salespeople might hate it.
I think
The
that may be
classic
a
introvert
fair
extrovert.
generalization. Yes.
I want to dig into something because so much focus that companies put on when kind of thinking about distributed work or distributed teams is they put a ton of focus on the tools, right? Like, do we have Zoom or do we have like a document storage thing? And I actually think that that's super important, but it's kind of like table stakes. Like,
Mhm.
you have to have those things, but they're not necessarily what makes it really accelerate, and you don't really get the true unlocks there because you're oftentimes
Mhm.
like kind of porting what the in office model, you're just porting it to like using these tools in a virtual world. I want to talk a little bit about like what maybe you guys have discovered or things that you've seen around the mindset or the cultural shifts that are required to really be successful with this.
Mhm. Well, I think that you're right. The tools they're foundational and they're kind of plumbing.
Yeah.
The piece that comes on after that is uh, things like, and we haven't mastered this, by the way, but
Yeah.
I think one big thing is just understanding and transitioning from a culture of in-person management to distributed management. So I
Yeah.
think about that contract, that business contract or performance contract where managers now are managing in a much different way. The
Yeah.
business is looking for a fair amount of effort from its employees. I think
Yep.
benchmarking is a new era that we're in, and a
Mm-hmm.
challenging one, because you can't just I think we gave a lot of credit to a butt being in the seat, right? Like
Yeah,
you
totally.
have to, if the butt's in
Activities,
the
right?
seat,
Versus
like that's, yes,
outcomes. Yeah.
check.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that transition to that and activities versus outcomes in a really big way, I think, is going to be a challenge for so many managers and so many brands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I would also say that the culture of business is going to change, and now I believe that at the end of the day, distributed is going to be a key component of your employer branding, and I will say it's table stakes.
Yep.
You will have to have a component of distributed,
Yeah.
and that's maybe not to say that every business is going to be 100%, but I think there's
Yep.
going to have to be a percentage of it. And if you are not offering that up, especially in information businesses,
Yep.
your competitors will be, and they're going to just take all the best talent. And so
Yep.
this war for talent and top talent, it absolutely is always going on. And this is now one of the key questions that people are going to be asking when they go to brands and say, like, I don't know if I necessarily even want to be distributed or remote working, but if I wanted to, is that on the table? And I think that the answer is going to have to be yes. And so brands are grappling with that, organizations are grappling with that and what that means. And I think that is a very healthy thing for employees and you know, where they go in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we kind of, you know, we started Brain Trust with the kind of the core idea, which is that like access to highly skilled technical talent will be the single biggest competitive advantage over the next decade. And this is true not only for you know the you know high growth tech companies like Hootsuite and you know Uber and folks like that, but also for the legacy organizations, right? Like the companies that are running you know $10 billion companies in Omaha or St. Louis or you know Baltimore. And so, you know, there's this really interesting thing that we've seen, which is basically that like now it you know went from vitamins to medicine, and now it kind of opened up and unlocked this potential of like, wow, if our people are at home, there's not really a big difference between hiring somebody in St. Louis and hiring that like 10x engineer that might live in Boise or in Poland, right? Or you know up in Vancouver. What do you think, like, how do you think this kind of plays out for companies? Like, do you think it's just people working from home in their local markets, or like, are you seeing that companies like Hootsuite are now like more open to actually like hiring talent on a global basis working from home?
I think it will absolutely go global. I think that I mean, look at what's going on at Uber today, and you know, over the last week, you know, the CEO is looking at offshoring more engineering talent. I think that this, I think at a global level and at a human level, I think this is a great thing. I think that there is a lot of amazing talent that is underutilized on the planet. And so getting those people doing top tier work that they can you know, perform is, I think, so impactful and important. And I think that it's going to take a little bit of time for the digital transformation to fully catalyze through a lot of organizations, but this has really sped it up. And I think it's to the best outcome for the brands that they're doing this, because you know they're going to ultimately produce better product more quickly, and that's to the betterment of the customer and you know everybody in the organization.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about this, like this idea that like that while talent is equally distributed around the world, like opportunity is not. Right. And then you see, you know, great platforms kind of bringing great talent. You know, I mean, we've seen it with Brain Trust that like literally same person in Krakow and in Mountain View, literally same skills, like, you know, same ability, this kind of 10x engineers, they are making, you know, $25-$30 an hour. And in Mountain View, they name their price, right? They're making $700,000 a year. And so I'm really interested to see how this creates a leveling effect, right?
Yeah, I like what you're talking about there. Yeah. Sorry, just a quick add on to that. You know, the transparency that's happening right now is interesting. And I think it I want to say it cuts both ways, but that sounds quite adversarial. Like, you know, you've got your employer and you've got your talent and your workforce. There's been a lot of people, you know, doing things like sharing salaries and, you know, benchmarking and all of that. What I think, and that's, you know, I think good to the employee. You know, they know that they're getting a fair salary deal. I think that the other side of it is that when we think about where this can go, you know, we've seen Facebook and others that are saying you can go and work where you like, but your salary will also be reflective of the cost of living in that region. And that, you know, I think is interesting because it's a somewhat new perspective on the swing of pendulum of you know, what is a fair deal. And that one actually plays out a little bit to more the benefit of the business, where you know, we're not going to pay New York or Valley rates if you're living in Krakow, because the cost of living there. And so I think that also will come into play. And I think that back to transparency, there's going to be, there's going to be formulas that, are going to say like, okay, you're a senior developer, that gets you to a certain level, that there's a regional multiplier based on your geography, and that will, kind of set you in it. And all of this will net out to what, the deal is. And I think that that's a super healthy thing and provides a lot of opportunity for people around the world.
I mean, there's kind of there's a bunch to unpack there, and maybe different dimensions or ways to look at that. One is like, localizing, like what Mark's doing, and kind of localizing rates, right? Another way to look at it is say, listen, like there should just be global market rates for these things. And a level 5 engineer should be getting level 5 engineer, and they should be able to choose where they live, and they shouldn't be, it's their arbitrage, right? Like, isn't that kind of that's part of what makes capitalism really powerful, is people can make those decisions and trade-offs.
Yeah, I think time will tell where the market sits on that, and it may be that geography multiplier is a very small part of the whole compensation question. So it may be insignificant and a rounding error in the case of people, but I think that it's interesting that is a consideration. And when you have a Facebook-sized payroll, it's their single biggest expense as a business, and their biggest expense item on their P&L. So that's going to be something that they're grappling with, and to see if that resonates with their workforce. Ultimately, it's a globally competitive market, and it may be a small part of their formula.
Yep. Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see how all of that kind of plays out. I saw a tweet the other day, I forget who it was from, but they were saying, like, for all those engineers that were so excited to work from home and work distributed, congratulations, you now have like 4 million competitors for your job.
Yeah, no, that's true. Back to the grass is always greener. I think that it's interesting, as especially for folks with kids. As I say, the future is hybrid, and I think that there will always be an element of like headquarters and home office, and there will be a percentage of people working there. People with kids, I think that the idea of working from home is amazing, but then you start to have the realization of your young kid banging around the house and trying to get work done, and it's a real challenge.
I guess there's a difference between working from home and working from home during a global pandemic and running a homeschooling operation like we've been doing. So the normal working from home, like I really love that program. The global pandemic and the homeschooling operation were two layers that I didn't have on my vision board for 2020.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to just explore one other kind of dimension here, which is that what we've been talking about is kind of the traditional like employer-employee relationship, right? And moving that maybe from HQ to remote. But what do you think the impacts are here of like of companies starting to like unlock other kinds of talent models, right? Like the traditional like W-2 engagement has been waning for many years as people like want to have more freedom, want to have more autonomy, want to be creators and freelancers, things like that. But companies some companies have been slow to adopt that, mainly because they want like butts and seats in their offices. How do you think this kind of changes the talent pools or types of kind of, I'll say, talent engagements between companies and the talent that they need?
So I think it comes back to the two things that we talked a little bit about. First off, performance management. How do you understand that from a business perspective that you're getting performance and effectively output from people? I don't think that it's a job that's done nearly well enough. I think the tools aren't good enough. I think that all of that. And so look, as a business and an employer, if you're getting as good or better output from somebody, I don't care if they work from Mars, right? Like if they're doing an incredible job, that's absolutely all that you need to know about is their output. And
Yeah.
I think that the second part of this equation kind of comes down to the competitive nature of the workforce.
Yeah.
And competition means that the winner usually goes somewhere where other people don't go, or is willing to go somewhere where other people won't go. The first
Sure.
businesses that say that they're going to shift their creative teams to primarily remote, or this or
Yeah.
that, raise the bar for everybody else. And then it
Sure.
becomes an employee decision on, do I want to go work for this organization which has built a culture around this, if that's important to you as an employee, or want to go
Yeah.
work to for this organization. And that'll be a really simple choice. And so I would say that also will be a forcing function. So the benchmarking will help people that are on that transition journey
Yep.
say, well, hey, guess what, the output is the same or better, so it's a
Yep.
no-brainer. And the more that can be proven out, the easier it'll be for people on the transformation. And then secondly, the competitive forces. You're going to have your HR team come into your office and say, like, hey, we lost a top candidate to this organization because
Yep.
of this reason. You start to add
Yeah.
that up, and you're like, we need to make a decision around this, and we need to change culture. And I think that will be happening more and more within businesses.
Yeah. So, you've navigated something really interesting over this past 6 months or so, as you've transitioned to bring aboard a new CEO for Hootsuite, and doing that in a fully distributed way, right? Like that's a totally new thing that
Yeah.
you've brought aboard a new CEO for an incredibly, high growth company during this time. And that CEO, maybe like you haven't spent a whole bunch of time with him here in this past month necessarily, but he's,
We haven't met in
presumably,
person.
yeah, exactly, right? Like that's a new thing. Like you
Mhm.
would never even dream of that happening before. So talk
Yeah.
to me about what that process was like, and maybe some learnings along the way.
Yeah. So it's been a real interesting journey. I mean, I think I announced that I was kicking off a succession search probably 9 months ago.
Yeah.
We had a recruiter helping us out. It was I had a board committee, myself and a couple board members that were leading the process. We had one of the things that we're aiming to build more within the organization is a greater diversity and inclusion. And part of our D&I journey is that we look at a really diverse pool of candidates, and we did. We started with a pretty interesting top of funnel and a quite a diverse pool. We narrowed down, and this candidate was on our short list. And had structured interview process, all virtual, and all over the phone. But I think that the part of this that was maybe the blessing of COVID is that when we initially talked to the candidate, the timing wasn't right from their perspective, and so we put them on the low burner, simmer away for a while.
Yep.
And as time progressed, we re-engaged, and timing was good on their side. And so in terms of like the COVID kind of aspect and where we were at, we started a little over 4 months, re-engaging with the candidate, lots of phone calls, lots of video conferencing. We didn't get that face-to-face, but the interesting thing is that through that, I don't feel like we lost a lot. And part of I guess why I mentioned a bit of the D&I framework, part of what we've done is in having structured interviews is to provide consistency. And a lot of where I think from an early startup perspective, and something that I know we ran into was the kind of like coffee meeting interview. You meet up with a person, you like shoot from the hip, and like, oh, this person's a culture fit. It's just like, you press a little bit on the key skills, but often there isn't that structure to the interview, and
Yep.
you start talking about mountain biking and
Yep.
your whatever else your interests are, and there's overlap there, and that person kind of just
Yep.
like comes through the door.
Yeah.
I think
Perpetuates
that
homogeny in organizations, right?
exactly, and I think that diverse organizations are more successful. They breed better outputs, etc. And so I guess where I get back to, with why I'm mentioning this in the process is that it was a bit of a forcing function on additional forcing
Yeah.
function on maybe less of the culture aspects
Yep.
with the candidate, and more focused us on the structure of the
Yep.
process and interview. And so
Yeah.
I think that was a benefit out of it. And as I say, we just got more and more excited as we had continued conversations, sharing the
Yeah.
vision, on the opportunity in the space, and the traction of where the company was at. And then as we got closer, we brought in other team members to meet up with the candidate, and then we did a
Yeah.
fully virtualized rollout introductions of the new leader into the company through live streaming. I did a fireside chat with them. We talked, did a ton of AMA, and a lot of the employees had questions that they were asking of Tom, and I think it was, he has been really well accepted in the organization,
Yeah.
and people are very excited.
That's so cool. So how do you think that kind of changes things going forward? I mean, you just hired the CEO of the company without ever meeting them in a fully
Right.
and onboarded them in a fully distributed way. Like, what does that unlock? But not only just for Hootsuite, but what do you think that
Yeah.
unlocks for other companies that either are in areas that don't have access to that kind of talent, right? Like we use this
Mhm.
kind of like Midwest example,
Yep.
or companies that are at such a incredible growth velocity like Hootsuite that you literally just need the best people in the world. So what do
Yeah.
you think that how do you think this changes both for your company and maybe other companies in this, in the coming years?
Yeah, well, I think it unlocks the art of the possible, and
Yeah.
I would say that I historically had a bias towards butts and seats. Like I'll
Yeah.
say it. There we go.
Yeah.
And so in my process, I we all have our list of nice to haves and must haves.
Yeah.
And I would say that over the past number of years, my must-have for my executive team was to be in Vancouver,
Yeah.
or to relocate
Yeah.
to Vancouver.
Yeah. I remember that.
And and guess what? As we got to this candidate, and that philosophy and that belief has changed over time, because I've worked with some highly effective executives
Yeah.
that have been remote. And I think that philosophy is now, shifted. And as we were in the world of COVID, and talking with this candidate, it became one of my especially in the time of COVID, it became my lowest priority. Like,
Yeah. Totally.
it just doesn't help you in any way to necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, are you prepared to be working on the time zone where the majority of the team are? Okay, well, that's as good as being
Yeah.
in region. And I get back to this forcing function around digital transformation. I think that it has probably been what has broken the dam and will break the dam for so
Yeah.
many organizations as they think about going distributed, hybrid, or fully distributed.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of our friends, James Everingham. He was the CTO of Instagram, and now works at Facebook's Cleaver project. He had a great quote. He said, like, there's no city on the face of the planet that has all of the technical talent that you need to build the company you need to build over the course of the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So touching on that a little bit, I know you've been an active angel investor, and obviously an entrepreneur that's gone through many rounds of fundraising. So I want to talk a little bit about maybe earlier stage stuff. So when Adam and I were raising our seed round, we found that there was literally investors that said they would only invest if we were all in the office together.
Mm.
And we're building a global platform for distributed work. And we're like, if we can't
Mhm.
build that with a distributed team, like we're on the wrong path here.
Right,
But
right, right.
literally, I mean, this is investors on Sand Hill Road, right? So
Yeah,
supposedly
yeah,
kind of the best and brightest. Now that seems crazy, right? Now, like startups aren't even meeting at investors' offices anymore to
right.
do pitches. So
Yeah.
how do you think this shift to
It's
distributed
called
teams?
underwear fundraising, Gabe.
Yeah, totally. So how do you think this kind of shift to distributed teams affects early stage investing and early stage company building?
Yeah. Well, I'll have my own flavor on that. I was fundraising for Hootsuite 11 years ago, and the question I got was, when are you going to move the team down
Why
to the valley?
Canada, right? Yeah, exactly,
Right.
right? Yeah.
And so that is just an extension of what you're saying, and it is I think I first off assign you're in the wrong office as an entrepreneur. But I think that has changed overnight for
Yeah.
what you have seen. I think that imagine now saying that coming into an office as a founder in just 4 months, right? Like just that 4 month period. If you came into a fundraising right now with a VC and you said, I believe that this company, every single person has to be in the office at 9 o'clock and leave at 5 o'clock, and I'm not willing to make any exceptions on that. How do you think that's going to affect your fundraising potential, right? I think so.
Yep.
So just in a period of 4 months, that paradigm was completely shifted. And as I say, we live in a competitive labor market. And I just will say this again, if you don't offer this as an element and an aspect of your employer brand, you are at a disadvantage. And so I would be very surprised that anybody you're talking to from an investment perspective right now would have a hard a hard no with putting an investment into a company that wants to be distributed.
Yeah. So maybe if you put your investor hat on, what categories, what spaces are really interesting for you right now, maybe that are underexplored or that have been like we talk about, like that distributed work has been accelerated by a decade in the last 3 months, like both the
Mm-hmm.
investment and also the mindset and the shift.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is there categories or spaces that really interesting for you these days?
Yeah. I mean, healthcare is obviously
Yeah.
interesting. I think we've found that we have a very broken system.
Because you guys have free healthcare in Canada, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, we do. We have socialized medicine in Canada. It ultimately is
What a
paid for
crazy idea that
a
everyone should have
little bit by
access
everybody.
to free healthcare. It seems crazy.
I love the system. It's a wonderful system, and I pay taxes into it, but it's an efficient
Yeah,
system. It works
yeah,
really
absolutely.
well, and I think we allocate our funds really well, and we get good efficiency out of it. And so it's a good public service.
Yeah,
Plug over, but there we go. So healthcare, absolutely, and even in
yeah,
Canada, there's opportunity for healthcare transformation of healthcare. Why do I have to show up in the doctor's office when I just want to,
sure.
talk about the symptoms that I have, and can they be more effective, and can they? So why are we, again, digital transformation? Why are we holding on to this old model that was pre the technologies that we have today and the world we live in? So I think that's a great area for disruption. Education, we're going to need to do a lot more in education and virtualizing it. I think universities are going to get absolutely disrupted.
Yeah,
The
yeah. I
model
mean,
is
I should
going to
pay that. I
change
should
there.
pay the same for Zoom calls as I should pay to
Yeah,
live at the university.
yeah.
Something doesn't
And
seem
the
right
funny,
there.
I think, like, is it MIT that offers all of its courses online virtually already?
Yeah,
And so now it's like, well, what value add you give me on top of that? The paper and all right. I mean, so that is up for a whole bunch of disruption and
yeah,
transformation. It kind of goes on and on and on. I think that you can take almost any industry and just think about how distributed will affect that industry and
sure.
category.
Yep.
Airlines, what does air travel mean? Travel tourism, what does that mean? On. So I think that this is
Yeah.
a once in a lifetime opportunity that just accelerated digital transformation that we all can be looking at from a startup and investment perspective.
Really, really cool. Great perspectives there. So I want to transition to something we call a lightning round. So we typically
Yeah,
just
I
do
had
kind of
no
one.
idea there was going to be a lightning round, Gabe.
So just
All
kind of,
right.
one, 2 sentence answers, free form, top of mind things. So on a personal note, what have you learned about yourself during shelter in place?
Oh God, lightning, lightning, lightning. I think that I can actually, work distributed, work remote, and be effective at that. And that's something that I wasn't, as aware of. And also, I'll say that my team can do the same.
Yeah. What's some old way of working that you hope never comes back?
Oh, suit and tie.
Silicon Valley, on the way up or on the way down as a result of this?
Um, I would say the world is on the way up.
If you could fast forward, let's say any specific business, not necessarily by name, by 5 years, like what would it be and why?
Um, just to look at what that business is doing in 5 years.
Yeah, so like you could fast forward an industry or a new business by
Yeah.
5 years.
I think that I'm really curious on the alternative meat category, and I want my test tube steak. I mean, I'm gone vegetarian over the last
Yeah,
while, and I think that I'd love a juicy steak that is environmentally and ethically produced, and I think that's a fascinating category.
cool. Um, what's the company that you wish you invested in the future work besides Zoom and Brain Trust?
Wait a minute. Do I not have advisor shares on Brain Trust? Damn. Yeah, in the future of work, well, I mean, Zoom would be the obvious. I think that anything in telecommunications, video conferencing is going to be like the basic table stakes.
Yeah.
I have some equity in both Google and Facebook, and I know they're going to be big players. I've got a little bit of Microsoft, so I think betting on any of those is a solid bet.
Cool. One that comes from a famous contrarian, Peter Thiel. What's something you believe strongly that's an unpopular view today?
Oh, Gabe, you're killing me here. Something that I believe strongly that is an unpopular view. Oh God, I got to take a pass. I can't even think about that right now. Okay, I'm a Canadian, Gabe. We're just such lovers and get along people.
I don't want you to have to say sorry to anyone after this. So cool. Well, hey, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a really fantastic conversation around industry trends, future work, and best of luck as you guys kind of continue to navigate to this next stage of growth for Hootsuite. It's just been amazing to see what you guys have done building as I like to refer to, like the maple syrup mafia up there in Vancouver, and hopefully your continued growth supports many, many more entrepreneurs building new things in Vancouver and beyond.
Thank you so much, Gabe. I'm so excited to see where you get to with everything that you're doing, and wish you all the best success in the
cool.
Brain Trust.
If people want to follow you, where can people find out more about you or Hootsuite?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Instagram, Twitter. I'm @Invoker.
Fantastic, great. So again, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.